Some negative vibes. There should never be any negative vibes hanging over Margaritaville. That's the whole point. A battle is intensifying over the late Jimmy Buffett's estate.
Jimmy Buffett turned Key West into a state of mind, and Shrimpboat Sound, his weather-beaten recording studio near the historic Seaport, was where that state of mind got pressed into songs. Fans talk about it the way film lovers talk about a classic backlot, or the way rock history talks about places like Sun Studio. Now, the little windowless bunker on Lazy Way Lane sits empty, stripped of its gear, and the city of Key West is weighing proposals that could reshape it forever. Some locals and parrot heads want restoration, tours, and music in the room again, while others say the only practical path is a bar with a museum feel. Tonight, we're digging into the battle over whether Jimmy Buffett's sacred studio gets turned into a bar. A studio built on an old icehouse.
You've never been in a studio? No. This one's so close to home? No, but it was a shrimp refrigeration unit. This was all a shrimp processing plant all around here when we first.
Shrimpboat Sound began life as a shrimp icehouse, which helps explain its tough, boxy look and its dockside location in Key West Seaport District. When Buffett started leasing the space in 1986, it was not flashy, but it was close to the water and close to the people and stories that fed his songwriting. Inside, it became intimate and familiar on purpose. Longtime collaborator John Lynch Jameson said Buffett wanted the room to feel the same every time he returned, like stepping back into a cozy 1980s vibe instead of a constantly updated showroom. That consistency extended to the equipment. Buffett filled the room with vintage recording gear, including a 1969 Neve mixing console he bought from Gordon Lightfoot, and the studio earned a reputation for serious sound hidden inside an unassuming shell. Over the years, the place hosted an impressive cross-section of artists. Accounts tied the studio to sessions involving musicians like Toby Keith, Kenny Chesney, Alan Jackson, and others, with even groups like the Smashing Pumpkins connected to the space at different points. Why the space went dark.
His music inspired cool vibes, island living and taking life one day at a time. But now, in Jimmy Buffett's death, things are taking a very drastic turn. The singer and entrepreneurial founder of the Margaritaville brand ordered in his will that his fortune be placed in a trust after his death.
After Buffett's death in 2023, the studio's future shifted from a private, creative workspace to a public question. The contents were removed, and the long-time lease arrangement ended in 2025, leaving the city-owned building as an empty shell that's not usable without repairs. The property's condition is a major driver of the debate. Jameson said the building has been battered by sun, salt air, and storms for decades, and he described maintenance as a constant fight when the ocean is basically at the front door. He also said safety concerns surfaced before Buffett died. According to Jameson, the city told Buffett a few years earlier that the studio was no longer safe and that the structure would need extensive work to remain viable. Even the fan-made shrine brings complications. Visitors covered the exterior with stickers and left trinkets like flip-flops and salt shakers, but Jameson said Buffett disliked the sticker look, which complicates the idea of preserving the site exactly as fans have treated it. Competing visions.
I think Jimmy Buffett will want everybody to kind of live life as they want to see it. Live life in every moment, appreciate every moment that you get to experience.
When the city invited proposals, two main ideas framed the argument. Shrimpboat Sound Key West LLC, led by David Bernson and supported by Buffett's family and band, pitched restoring the site as a working studio with tours, live broadcasts, private sessions, and charitable proceeds. Buffett's sister, Lori McGuane, described the studio as a special place because it was the last spot where he recorded before he got sick. The proposal's supporters also compared the building's cultural pull to famous music landmarks that draw visitors because history was made there. Spotswood Management offered a very different way to keep the address busy. Their concept was a renovated frozen drink and margarita bar, paired with a museum and retail operation devoted to Key West's music, arts, and fishing history, essentially blending tribute with nightlife. The split is not just about vibes, it's about purpose. One side wants a living studio that still makes music and raises money for local causes, while the other argues a bar and museum model could generate steady revenue and keep the building active year-round. Boardroom fight and public backlash.
Those assets include $85 million in equity in the aforementioned Margaritaville. That's the Buffett-themed company that has 30 restaurants and bars, 20 hotels, along with retirements, cruises, lots of communities there.
The November 2025 meeting of the Key West Bight Management District Board showed how complicated a beloved landmark can get once it turns into a lease negotiation. Staff recommended negotiating with the studio-centered plan, saying it best aligned with community values and the property's legacy as a creative hub. At the same time, board members raised concerns about the process itself, including whether the city should have used a formal request for proposals approach and how the newly adopted public-private partnership process fit the situation. Those procedural questions helped push the board towards postponement. Public comment poured in from residents, fans, and longtime visitors who argued the island already has plenty of places to buy a drink, especially in that waterfront area. They framed this decision as one of the few chances left to protect a piece of old Key West that still feels real. The debate also produced uglier moments. Chair Bill Lay condemned a wave of anonymous copy and paste emails attacking the Spotswood family and called the tone a cult mentality, while Burnson publicly said his group had no involvement and urged respect for the Spotswoods' long-standing role in the community. What happens next?
But his request to have her removed, that would be clearly outside the desire and the will of what Jimmy Buffett wanted. And so the court's going to want to stay within the best interest of what the person did before they passed. And so I would be completely confused if the court removed her as a trustee. That would make absolutely no sense.
By early January 2026, reporting indicated the city rejected both leading proposals without publicly detailing why, and said it was still accepting letters of interest. City leaders also expressed hope for more ideas that would keep the site connected to music and recording. A new contender emerged in mid-January 2026 from the Key West Musicians Collective. Their proposal offered to preserve the building as a historic landmark and active recording studio, with repairs and startup costs driven by crowdfunding and community support. The collective leaned hard into the studio's visibility and symbolism, describing it as one of the most photographed destinations in Key West, and outlining a plan to rehabilitate it back to historic condition with ADA compliance, roof work, and structural repairs. They also said they would try to keep existing tributes intact during restoration. Financially, the collective pitched a nonprofit-style mission in which income generated from the property would be earmarked by the city for cultural preservation and community aid through music, with donations guided in discussion with the Bight District. They even laid out a timeline goal of occupancy around May 1st, 2026, contingent on inspections and successful fundraising. Now it's time to hear from you. If you were on the Key West board, would you protect Shrimpboat Sound as a working studio with tours and community benefits? Or do you think a bar and museum concept is the only realistic way to fund repairs and keep the doors open?